Hey everyone and welcome to UK Media Warrior. Wonder Woman has finally hit the screen, and with all the hype around you would imagine it's the second coming. But is it? Well, let's find out what it is in my my only opinion. Okay, that's the problem with some of these reviewers out there. I get the feeling that they're under so much pressure to like this movie because if any of them stick their head above the ramparts and say, well, it was okay, but they get slammed for being sexist, misogynist pigs. As I only have 12 subscribers to YouTube, I really don't have that issue. So I'm just going to tell it as I see it. But let's get the basics done because that should help move forward. Is it a bad movie? No. It's most certainly not a bad movie. It's a very, very good movie. Is it the best DCE movie we've had? Yes, it is. Man of Steel comes in very close second for me because I love Man of Steel. But I think Wonder Woman just ekes it out. If we're talking about DC films, then the Christopher Nolan Batman trilogy still win for me, hands down. They're just an incredible series of films. So with all that said, we now know that I think this is a very, very good film. However, it does have its problems. And it's these problems that every other reviewer I'm looking at on YouTube seems to be ignoring. And I don't understand why, unless they really are just so scared to have all this hate from the feminist groups and the SJWs. I just don't know. But anyway, let's start with some good points. Let's cover the good points. The opening of the film on the island of Themyscira is fantastic. It's a great opening and a great origin for the character. You see her as a young girl growing up. You see the sword and the shield that she'll carry later on. You meet her mother, played by Connie Nielsen, who is fantastic in this film. You meet Robin Wright, who's the general in charge of the Amazonian army, who knocks it out of the park in this film. She's absolutely incredible. And then finally, as Diana grows and is trained, Steve Trevor crashes his plane on this island, followed up very closely by a ship full of Germans who attack the island. And the Amazonians fight their first battle, by the look of it, for centuries on horseback with swords and with bows and arrows, while the Germans are landing on their beaches with rifles. And it looks pretty dire for the Amazonians for a while, but they win the day, obviously, as we know. And that whole sequence, that whole section was really good. I really enjoyed that. Then we move on to Steve and Diana coming over to our world during World War One. They go to London, and this is where things start to bog down. The third act is a complete mess. Let's just get that out there straight away. But after Diana reaches London and starts to try and integrate into our world, it starts to have a few problems. It starts to slow down. The pacing isn't really that good. It feels like a long film. Its running time, let me just check, it's 141 minutes. 141 minutes, that's 2 hours 21 minutes. Now that's a long film. Does it need to be 2 hours 20 minutes? Well, no, really. I mean, you could have probably got away with a 2 hour film. You could have cut 20 minutes off of it. There's a lot of fat on this film that could have been cut away and it wouldn't have affected the film negatively at all. It would have probably actually made it a lot tighter, a lot leaner, and a better story. So there are pacing issues, but good points. Chris Pine is incredible, and the chemistry between Pine and Gal Gadot on screen is lovely to watch, and they really do work together well. I was incredibly worried by Gal Gadot being cast as Wonder Woman because she really hasn't had much in the way of a big casting role in films up until this point. She's mostly known, I think it's for Giselle in the Fast and Furious movies, but she was only like a very small co-starring role. And then all she did was kick butt, and that was pretty much it. She didn't have much in the way of speaking lines. And for the trailers for Wonder Woman, They've tried to stay away from her acting scenes. All you've seen in the trailers was pretty much her kicking butt, which we know from Batman vs Superman she can do incredibly well. So I had no worries about that. I knew the action scenes were going to be amazing, and they are. They're absolutely fantastic. As I say, other than the third act, we'll get to that. She looks like Wonder Woman. She embodies Wonder Woman 150%. I mean, you look at her, you look at the way she moves, and that's Wonder Woman. Straight out of the comic books, nailed it. But for all of that, and for her being a lot better than I feared she was going to be bad, but for all of that, she was actually a lot better than I thought she was going to be. But even with that, she's not that good when it comes to the monologues and the... There are a couple of scenes where she has to emote. The death of Robin Wright's character is one. Obviously, the death of Steve Trevor at the end is another one. And she does those well. There's no denying that. She does. But it's the other stuff. It's the acting parts. This is another problem. The reviewers are saying, oh, Gal Gadot was fantastic. She was fantastic in the action. She did the emoting. She was absolutely incredible. You know, a few of them have actually said, well, you know, she's actually not there. It's not going to be an Oscar-winning performance. But then nobody expected to be an Oscar-winning performance. So they're just hedging their bets and walking on eggshells. But her performance when she's not kicking butt and when she's not screaming in anguish are very... I don't know. I've been struggling with this because I've been trying to think about it since I watched the film. I'm not sure whether it's the accent. It could be that's causing the issue. But I don't think it is, because when you surround her with actors like Chris Pine, Robin Wright, you know, Connie Nielsen, David Thewlis, Danny Huston, when you surround her with these actors and she's acting with them, you notice her weakness compared to them. You can't hide it. So they sort of 80%, 70% cast the right person for the film, in that she looks like Wonder Woman, she acts like Wonder Woman, she kicks butt like Wonder Woman. But when it comes to the actual acting, the monologues, the saying the lines and the words, it's a little bit stilted at times. It's a little bit slow. It just is. But she's good. She's a lot better than I thought she was going to be. And as I said, all the surrounding cast are equally good. Danny Huston as the General Ludendorff, the German general, he's a moustache twirling baddie. He doesn't have a lot to do, really. Just chew the scenery and be bad. So he does his part. The lady who plays Dr. Poison, let me see, who was that? Dr. Poison, Alana Anya. She was possibly the least effective out of all of them, but then her part was very comic booky, very hammed up. I mean, maniacal laughter and sort of like gazing into a test tube and twisting knobs, and you can almost expect lightning to be flying behind her between, you know, lightning conductors or something. It was basically like Igor in his lab. So you can't... She did what she could. She was given that role. That was how she was directed to do it. But talking of directing, Patty Jenkins, her first multi-million-dollar film. I think this one was budgeted somewhere in the region of 150 or 160 million, possibly a little bit more. This is her first time handling that, and she was given this film to do under a ton of pressure. The first female-led film, a superhero film. And with all of this pressure from feminists and SJWs and everyone putting pressure on her, you know, to make the first great female empowerment superhero movie, I would not have wanted to be her. But what she has produced is incredible. She has walked that tightrope like a master, and she has produced one of the best superhero films I have ever seen. As I said, certainly the best DCEU movie we've seen. And better than some Marvel films, without doubt. But it's not the best superhero movie film I've ever seen. Winter Soldier is still up there for me. Iron Man, I think, was a better movie than Wonder Woman. You know, Civil War, There are a lot of Marvel movies. And it annoys me because I like them all. I love DC and Marvel. Growing up, I've read both sides of this comic book spectrum. I've read a load of Marvel stuff. Read a load of DC stuff. So I love them both. I'm not a fanboy pigeonholed into one or the other and I have to hate the other one. I love them all. So this film is good, but it's not the best superhero film. I don't care what any of the reviewers say. They're just drinking the Kool-Aid and looking at everything through their rose-tinted Wonder Woman glasses or whatever. It's really not that good. It's not as good as the hype, so don't swallow that. But it is a good film, and I can't underline that enough. Some of the negatives, as I said, the pacing was off. The third act was a total mess. When they revealed who Ares was, it wasn't really a surprise. You knew it wasn't Danny Huston as Ludendorff because about a third of the way in the film, Dr. Poison gives him a little pill capsule and says, "Here, sniff this, it'll make you feel strong again." And he breaks it and he sniffs it and it makes him incredibly strong and invigorated. If it was Ares, he wouldn't need that. He's the god of war. He wouldn't need to take drugs to feel good. So we knew it wasn't Ludendorff all the way back, a third of the way through the film. And then when you look at who's left, it could have really only been David Thewlis because he's the only other big name actor left that you hadn't found out anything much about. So you knew it was going to be him. So the reveal at the end really lost all of its power. And seeing him in the Ares armour, but still with the moustache, looked a bit silly. Plus the final battle went on way too long. A lot of people said, well, it would go on a long time. You've got a god versus a demigod. You can't expect it to be over quick. Well, why not? I mean, if you've got two humans fighting each other, are you saying, well, they're two humans, so they're equally powerful, so that's going to take a long time? Well, no. Of course it's not. It could be over in seconds. So just because one's a god and one's a demigod is going to take forever, that's a ridiculous statement to make. So that goes on too long, and the ending where they kill Ares, and suddenly, once Ares dies, all the Germans that are in the vicinity start hugging each other and smiling, and the sun comes out, and everyone's happy, sort of underlying what Diana has been saying all the way along, because Steve Trevor's been saying to her, no, this isn't Ares. Ares hasn't caused this war. This is just humanity. This is who we are. We're not good. We're a mixture. We can do evil and we can do good. And we're responsible for causing this war. This wasn't Ares. All the way through the film, he was trying to drive this into her. So by the end, when she's still naive about this, which was getting very frustrating to me, that she was still this naive at the end of the film, and then she kills Ares and the sun comes out and everyone starts hugging each other. It sort of validates her point of view, but we know her point of view is wrong. We know Steve's is right because Ares even says, I didn't create this war. I just whispered in certain people's ears, giving them ideas for weapons or how to use the weapons if they wanted, but I didn't create the war. The humans did, because he was trying to get Diana on his side. He was trying to open her eyes and show her what the humanity was like. So, like I say, when she kills Ares, the sun comes out, everyone's hugging, that was against everything that they just disclosed in the film. So that was totally out of place. The twist that Diana is the god killer and it's not the sword. Well, I got that in the first 10 minutes of the movie. You see the young girl walk into that tower with Connie Nielsen as a mum, and she looks at the sword and she says, what's the sword? Is that the god killer? And Connie Nielsen has this anguished look on her face and she looks down at Diana and says, one day you will know the truth. Right then I knew Diana was the god killer and it wasn't the sword. So when the twist came at the end where Ares destroys the sword out of hand and says to her, it was never the sword, it was you, Diana, you're the god killer. It was like, well, yeah, saw that coming a mile down the road. So the twists and turns aren't really good. The plot is a by numbers plot. The villains aren't fantastic. They're just moustache twirling baddies who are very disposable, not given a lot of depth. The good guys have got a little bit more depth to him, but once again, even Steve Trevor, you don't get a lot of history about it. You find out he's an American volunteer, you find out he's a spy working for the British, but other than that, you really don't find out a lot about him. 2/3 of the way through the film, just as the third act's about to kick in, they meet up with this team of 3 guys who Steve Trevor's worked with before, a Native American smuggler, for some reason, who's out there, an Irish or Scottish, I couldn't make my mind up, probably Scottish, hard-drinking sniper who has PTSD, although we never get into why he has PTSD, even though we go through this whole short story arc of him not being able to fire his rifle, which is very reminiscent of Goodnight Robichaux out of the last Magnificent Seven movie, if anyone's seen that. It's basically the same character, just with a Scottish accent. And then we've got this Arab gentleman who supposedly wants to be an actor, who's a fast talker, who's a good swindler, who really doesn't get to do much in the way of fast talking or swindling. So they're pretty much useless, and they're just there to be soldiers back up to Steve and Wonder Woman as they go on their mission. So that's all pretty there. But it also, when I was watching these films, there were a lot of similarities between this and Captain America the First Avenger. I know a lot of people are going to say, oh, Marvel, you're a Marvel fan, that's why you're saying that. But it's not that. They're just there, and if you open your eyes and look, you'll see them. The watered-down Howling Commandos of Captain America's film are those 3 guys, the Indian, the Scotsman, and the Arab guy. They're like a watered-down version of the Howling Commandos. Going on a mission behind enemy lines to kill the bad guy. That's exactly what Steve Rogers and the Howling Commandos do at the end of the First Avenger. Steve Trevor, dying in a bomber filled with technologically advanced bombs at the end, which is on its way to a major city to kill thousands, and the only way he can stop it is by piloting this bomber alone and then blowing it up. Very reminiscent of how Captain America dies at the end of the First Avenger. He's flying this enemy bomber on its way to a city to kill thousands with technologically advanced bombs, and the only way he can stop it is by diving it into the ice. It's pretty much exactly the same. Steve didn't have to die in this movie, and I wish he hadn't, because I would love to see Chris Pine come back for the second Wonder Woman movie that they're going to do. He was an incredible character, and the connection between him and Godot, Chris Pine and Godot, was fantastic, so I'd love to see that again. Plus, it just didn't make sense. In the film, they're looking at the bomber on the tarmac and they're saying, well, we can't blow it up here. The gas will spread for about 50-mile radius and that will kill hundreds, if not thousands of people. So Steve climbs into this thing, flies it for literally a few minutes, and then blows it up in the air. Still over the land, and now up in the air. So that gas is going to spread even further, and because gas is heavier than air, it's going to drop. And it's still going to kill hundreds, if not thousands of people. So it was a worthless sacrifice. It just wouldn't have worked. And if they're using the thing, well, he blew it up, so the flame would have destroyed the gas. Well, fine. In that case, why didn't he do it on the tarmac? Why didn't he just set explosives on the bomber and blow it up on the tarmac? Why get in it and fly it away and kill himself? No, it just falls apart. It doesn't make any sense. Another little thing, all the way through the film, Wonder Woman can converse with all these people from all these different languages, countries, all these different countries in their own language, their own modern language. And yet she has been on Themyscira for, we don't really know. I mean, if we're just going from when we first see her as a young girl to when we see her leaving the island, it's what, 20 years maybe? But these Amazons don't seem to get any older, so she could have been on there for decades for all we know. Centuries even. But the point that they make is nobody has been on this island, no human has been on this island for centuries. They've shut themselves away, they want nothing to do with the outside world, so they haven't left, nobody's come in, nobody's been on that island for centuries. And yet Wonder Woman can somehow speak all of these modern languages because she studied. Studied what? Languages change. If you go back 3 centuries in the UK and try to speak to someone in modern English, do you think they're going to understand what you're saying? Nah, probably not. And they've been stuck away on here for, well, since the Greek gods. So, you know, that could be 400, 500, 600 years. So, well, no, it'd be like 1,000 years, over 1,000 years, or 2,000 years. So it doesn't make sense that she would be able to speak to these people. The fact that she can speak modern English to Steve when he washes up on the coast doesn't make much sense when you think about it. So there are these plot holes throughout the film, as there are with any movie, I'll grant you. But my point is, there are a lot of problems with this film that none of the critics are bringing up. And that's what annoys me. They're like blinkered, and they're only looking at the good. Stay focused on the good. Mustn't look at the bad. Don't look at the bad, because if we say the bad, we're going to get hammered by all these feminists and whatever, SJWs from the side. We can't have that. And that's what annoys me. It is a good film. As I said at the beginning, I love this film. I had a great time. I came out of it with a smile on my face. Patty Jenkins does an incredible directing role as making this film, and she doesn't make it feminist at all. It is just a good film led by a woman, and all the guys are fantastic in it. None of them are dumbed down. Steve Trevor is great. He holds his own. You know, he teaches Wonder Woman stuff. So she does an incredible job walking this tightrope, and I have nothing but praise for Patty Jenkins, and I can't wait to see what she does next. But there are problems that everyone is ignoring. So, for me, this film has an 8.5 out of 10. It's not great, it's not perfect like everyone is trying to tell you, but it is a very good film. Okay, 8.5 out of 10 for me. So thank you for watching this review. If you liked it, please subscribe to my YouTube channel or share this on your Facebook. Until next time, you guys take care, and the next review will be Baywatch. That one should be fun. See you later, guys.